Welcome to the Freedom Project podcast. My name is Tom Foxley, and today we're going to be discussing another paper that I found, The Making of an Expert. It's not really a paper, this one. It's a journal article in the Harvard Business Review. It's massively impactful, and it offers a condensation. I need a better word for that, like a kind of condensation, something like that, a compact view of a lot of the work by Anders Ericsson, which is so influential. And if you are interested, I definitely recommend the book Peak by Anders Ericsson. It goes into this in a lot more detail in a very accessible way. However, let me give you a little bit of a rambling preamble to this. I realized that the safest way to build a business is by doing the riskiest thing. And what I mean by that is pursuing nothing other than the best in the world, or being the best in the world. Mediocrity is this very quick way to a spiritual and financial death. Life isn't here to be mediocre. You're not here to be mediocre. And it's so competitive as well. So many people are just trying to be good enough. So just being good enough isn't only a waste of your life. It's like competitive as anything to be fighting for the ground that everyone else is in. So many people are trying to put the minimum effort in and just get by. And people see through it. In a business, people want to deal with people who are exceptional. They see through people who are purely mediocre. And on a personal level, I'm sure you want exceptional relationships, not just good enough, bland, average relationships. I'm sure athletically, you want to be exceptional. You don't want to just be mediocre. God forbid you're the average health in the Western world. Like that's a hideous place to be. But the key thing is, basically no one's fighting for the summit. The air is thin up there. The route is treacherous, but most people are on the valley floor still. To be honest, no one's got the balls, but no one's got the belief to do it too. It's the equivalent of being in the 1950s in the mountaineering world, and most people are doing that with like Hessian ropes and woolen coats. That's where we are right now. You can stand on the shoulder of giants and become exceptional. So this today is how to achieve excellence according to the science of expert performance. You can apply this to your business, the skills within your business, like selling, coaching, marketing, leading, admin, if you want to do that, finances. You can apply it to your family life. You can apply it to your athletic pursuit. You can apply it to playing an instrument, learning chess. Okay, this paper is by Anders Ericsson, Plateau, and Coakley. It's called The Making of an Expert, and it's exceptional. The phrase that frames this whole article, like I said, found in the Harvard Business Review. I think you might struggle to find it, but I managed to get it in my university library, is this phrase. Consistently and overwhelmingly, the evidence shows that experts are always made, not born. Let me say that again without traipsing all over my own words. Consistently and overwhelmingly, the evidence shows that experts are always made, not born. The first part of this paper, is really there to tell you there are no prerequisites to being world-class, apart from some physical attributes in sports, and even then, there's outliers. You can find people who are not meant to physically be that high up, sprinters that are not built right, rugby players that are too small, too light, endurance athletes that are too heavy, too big. And there's no measure that equates to business success. There's no measure that equates to happy relationships. There's no measure that equates to being a world class in anything, apart from practicing intensively, having devoted teachers, and being supported by your families in your developing years. But what is key here is I doubt you're going for the Olympics here. I think you're probably going for the Olympics of business, which is freedom and being exceptional and having a high quality life. So one quote from here that sums this up. They were doing some research on virtuosos and also those exceptional people in music, maths, neurology, everything. And they said no early indicators could have predicted the virtuoso's success. Subsequent research indicating there is no correlation between IQ and expert performance in fields such as chess, music, sports, and medicine has borne out his findings. The only innate differences that turn out to be significant, and they matter primarily in sports, are height and body size, like I just said. There's also one more key piece here that I am just going to read a whole paragraph. This article is more highlighted than not highlighted, so I'm going to try and keep this precise and dense for you. But I am going to read this entire paragraph. The journey to truly superior performance is neither for the faint of heart nor for the impatient. The development of genuine expertise requires struggle, sacrifice, and honest, often painful self-assessment. There are no shortcuts. It will take you at least a decade to achieve expertise, and you will need to invest that time wisely by engaging in deliberate practice that focuses on tasks beyond your current level of competence and comfort. You will need a well-informed coach, not only to guide you through deliberate practice, but help you learn how to coach yourself. Above all, if you want to achieve top performance, you've got to forget the folklore about genius that makes so many people think they cannot take a scientific approach to developing expertise. So, realize that genius is a myth. Engage in deliberate practice and realize that what you're going to do requires struggle, sacrifice, and honest, often painful self-assessment. Those are the keys. To be honest, I don't know what it is about that. It gets me so excited about doing difficult things. It switches on that part of me that's like, yes, I want to go after some challenge. I want to push myself. And I hope that switches on the same part in you too. One of the first things that we need to do is learn to identify what an expert really is. We need to question it. We need to identify, like, are we becoming an expert? Where do we need to get to? And the reason I would encourage you to question this comes from two studies. Actually, one's more anecdotal, but the second one is a study. Novice therapists, this is the one that is a study. Novice therapists were given 3 months of training, so psychotherapists. And they were compared in how well they did with their clients and the results they got to people with advanced degrees, decades of experience as psychotherapists. They found that there was no difference between the two. And we'll get onto why that is very shortly. There's an event called the Judgment of Paris. And this is a story, it's not even a story, it was a real life experiment, a real life blind taste testing of wines in Paris by an English-owned wine maker, or I think it was a wine store in Paris. And what happened is they did a complete blind taste testing, and they said, what's better, these Californian wines or this French wine? And as we know, France is and the French are very proud of their country and what they do. And within the wine world too, because it's so dominated by Europe, French wine is widely considered to be far superior. But no expert could see the difference between Californian and French wine. That means that, firstly, let's be less snobs about how we and where we get our wine. But secondly, there's no difference between the experts and the average people here on their ability to decide what wines are from where. So there's 3 pieces that define an expert according to science. Firstly, they get superior performance relative to their peers, as they continually outperform their peers. Secondly, they get concrete results. And thirdly, their methods can be replicated and measured. There's a lovely quote in here. I forget who it's from. I'll try and find it whilst I am scrolling. So it's Lord Kelvin, a British scientist. He said, if you cannot measure it, You cannot improve it. So within business, this is obviously littered with numbers. Sales, retention, we can look at profit margins. Like there's so many numbers that are all, like quality feedback, all things like that. We can pull out those numbers. But there are elements where it's more difficult. For example, I really struggled to do this with myself. But then I looked at the behaviors. I got more granular of expert performers in parallel fields. There's not many people who do what I do, so there's not been very many studies, but I researched what the best people in the world do. And one thing that happened is that experts offer more reflections that consolidate people's experiences, framed honestly, without judgments or without their own aspersions cast upon it. So they basically say, what I'm hearing is this. And they call people out on their bullshit and they help people. Now, the experts do that more frequently without a call. They don't offer guidance until the last few minutes because they're trying to listen. And it's not just letting people waffle, it's uncovering and uncovering and uncovering. That's what experts do. So my job, the way I train this, the way I improve this, becomes provide more of these. So measure, quantify how I'm doing. I literally at the end of each calls, I'll upload a transcript and go through or trawl through and like how many reflections did I put in? How could I have done that better? How could I have consolidated that better? What do I really think? And that constant pursuit of elite performance has really, really helped my coaching ability. So now we move on to the third main area of this article. It's all about deliberate practice. I've talked about this before, I know, but we're going to come back to it. At first glance, it always looks like expert performance is the result of just this daily practice, accumulating lots of hours. But like I spoke about in the Mundanity of Excellence podcast, not all practice is made equal. There's this lovely, lovely quote that I love. When most people practice, they focus on the things they already know how to do. However, living in a cave does not make you a geologist. That is from this article. So what is deliberate practice? Deliberate practice is a better way of doing this. And it has a few defining key features. But one of the lovely phrases around this is it's considerable, specific, and sustained effort to do something you can't do well or even at all. So consistently practicing by doing something that you cannot do well or even at all. Like how difficult is that? How difficult is it to convince yourself to do things that you're really struggling with every single day? To be a beginner, to suck at things every single day. But consistently doing that is the reason that people become world-class. So in golf, for example, it's very, very, and they actually use this example in the article, it's very easy to kind of start off, you get some tutelage, you get a coach, you hit a bunch of balls off a mat, you hit a bunch of balls in a simulator, you go to a driving range, you hit ball after ball, you're shit to begin with, and then you start to get some competence and you go out and play a few rounds, you improve, and then you hit this plateau. And that plateau occurs when each round doesn't stretch you. It just becomes the same thing. You keep on doing the same things. You don't change the quality of what you're doing. You don't improve the quantity of what you're doing. You don't get feedback and the rounds become social. So what this means for you is like, how can you stretch yourself? How can you push yourself? Even these skills that appear completely innate, like charisma. Like think about Churchill and charisma. What you don't realize about Churchill is that those skills that he practiced, those skills that appeared so natural and effortless to him, like his oratory, I think that's the right word, skills, he practiced for hours and hours and hours in front of a mirror. He worked on them, he stretched himself. He developed his charisma. So what I love about this is like experts practice thinking deliberately. Ben Hogan, a world-class golfer, one of the best golfers ever, he said, while I'm practicing, I'm also trying to develop my powers of concentration. I never just walk up and hit the ball. So we see here that exceptional performance is not just built by, and of course I would say this because it's what I do, but it's not just built by the physical skills and the technical skills of your area that you're trying to develop. It's the quality of your thinking too. It's the quality of your mind that has to develop. So there are two kinds of learning that occur in deliberate practice. One is improving the skills that you already have. So what can you do already that you can get better at? master the fundamentals, keep on doing it. You look at a football team, for example, and it's like, do the fundamentals well. Keep on pushing yourself. Same in business too. Come back to the fundamentals. In whatever you're trying to master at the moment, do the basics, and how can you improve your ability to execute the basics? And then secondly, extending your range of skills, learning new skills on top of that. You've got to do both. You can't just pursue the new thing. You've got to come back to the foundations and execute that. One of the key things about deliberate practice is that to improve, it's got to be exceptionally psychologically taxing. No one can handle more than 4 or 5 hours a day. Now, this is one of the reasons that I've limited my coaching clients so aggressively, because I can only handle a maximum of 4 clients per day where I'm pushing myself, driving myself to be the best coach possible. This accumulates though, and it's the quality of the effort you put in that creates the results. And one thing that academics particularly do that is very impressive and you can learn from is they usually do all of their hardest work first thing in the morning. So that looks like just 1 or 2 hours, but 2 hours a day is 700 hours per year, which is obviously 7,000 hours in a decade. That's almost at your 10,000 hour rule, just from 2 hours a day. So you can get there. After a level, what happens is, or like once you hit a level of success, and this is usually where people come to work with me, is they've hit this level of success and now they're not growing. And it's because they've realized that, or they haven't even realized it, because they've basically got into a comfort zone, but the neurobiology of what's happening there is they're just using the same circuits, the same neural patterns in their brain, the same networks in their brain. They're not trying to connect these and draw upon more internal resources. So with professionals, it looks like they're not trying new things. It looks like a fear of trying something new, but really they're just walking in the same grooves over and over and over. They're in the same footsteps, just walking the same path over and over and over again. One of the quotes that I will read to you from this is this final paragraph of kind of this section anyway. Moving outside your traditional comfort zone of achievement requires substantial motivation and sacrifice, but it's a necessary discipline. As the golf champion Sam Snead once put it, it is only human nature to want to practice what you can already do well, since it's a hell of a lot less work and a hell of a lot more fun. Only when you see that deliberate practice is the most effective means to the desired end, so becoming the best in your field, will you commit to excellence. It then goes on to say, Snead, who died in 2002, held the record for winning the most PGA Tour events and was famous for having one of the most beautiful swings in the sport. Deliberate practice was key to his success. Practice puts brains in your muscles. They also go on in this article to say, Snead said he has the most beautiful natural swing, but he worked on that relentlessly. It did not come naturally to him. He had to work on it, and it's sets and reps that got him there. This section, what's on the 4th section, I lose count now, is just about taking the time you need. Success takes time. Becoming world-class takes time. There's the 10,000 hour rule, 10 years, something like that. But it's more about the quality and the quantity of the reps that you're putting in. You just got to keep on going, keep on putting the reps in. Previously, it used to take people 15 to 25 years to master the basics of mathematics. That was 100 years ago, but now it's taught to them, the same things are taught to like school students, like secondary school students. It doesn't take that long. And the reason why is because we know how to learn better. We know the foundations, you don't have to struggle. And just like that, you're now building on mastery. You're building on people who have succeeded. So go out and learn from them. There's a quote in here. Leo Tolstoy once observed that people often told him they didn't know whether or not they could write a novel because they hadn't tried, as if they only had to make a single attempt to discover their natural ability to write. This is such a silly way of thinking, okay? We just have to try once. We have to put the reps in time and time and time again. It's about engaging in what is a struggle for you for thousands of hours. There's no shortcut to that. But the path to mastery can be massively expedited if you commit to deliberate practice. And then the final practical piece of this article for you is on finding coaches and mentors. And I believe you need two types of mentors, and these are the ones that I've consistently sought out in my life. Mentors that teach you the practical skills, and mentors that teach you the internal skills. In a magical world, you find one who does both, but it's very rare. And the reason why is because they're right at the top. And this is one of the reasons why I've tried to bring this stuff down from the kind of air quotes summit of like wrapped up in elite performance psychology and bring it to everyone else, because it's not massively accessible unless you get unless you're very, very lucky. So this section starts with Ivan Galamian. I don't know. He's a violin teacher, and he says he basically made the point that maestros don't engage in deliberate practice spontaneously. They don't just start doing it. He says if we analyze the development of the well-known artists, we see that in almost every case, the success of their entire career was dependent on the quality of their practicing. In practically every case, the practicing was constantly supervised by either the teacher or an assistant to the teacher. They kept on getting feedback. They kept on being given harsh feedback, usually. And another quote from this, not from Galamian or whatever his name is, but from the authors of this article, is also it also has shown that future experts need different kinds of teachers at different stages of their development. In the beginning, most are coached by local teachers, people who can give generously of their time and praise. Later on, however, it's essential that performers seek out more advanced teachers to keep improving their skills. Eventually, all top performers work closely with teachers who have themselves reached international levels of achievement. So we need expert teachers. We need people to push us. We need people to strive. We need people to show us what we're doing wrong. And that you need constructive, like often painful feedback to be given to you. Like one of the things that I specialize in, or try to specialize in, is giving painful feedback in a nice-ish wrapper. It's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable, but there's ways to do it. So one key thing as well is like elite performers, they pick, in the phrase of this article, unsentimental coaches who would challenge them and drive them to higher performance. So you want coaches who can just give you your next level, just the next level, not the peak level. You don't want to be overwhelmed, but just like, what's the next level? What's the next level? We need that level of stretch, that level of drive. What we know about neuroplasticity, which is all that we're doing here, we're just reconnecting, like it's more complicated than that, but we're rewiring circuits within the brain. We're connecting them to different areas. We're reinforcing and let some pathways and letting old pathways fade away. All we're doing is putting in the sets and the reps that make us successful. One line that I am going to pull out of this, because I think it's key, and it also kind of, I suppose it also promotes what I'm doing, but like it's more the concept of what I'm doing. Good coaches help their students learn how to rely on an inner coach. Okay, they develop self-coaching. They want to know what they can do better, and that's what allows them to keep on performing. Again, there's a few more lines that I'd love to read here. One of them is this one. Benjamin Franklin provides one of the best examples of motivated self-coaching. When he wanted to learn to write eloquently and persuasively, he began to study his favourite articles from a popular British publication, The Spectator. Days after he'd read an article he particularly enjoyed, he would try to reconstruct it from memory in his own words. Then he would compare it with the original so he could discover and correct its faults. He also worked to improve his sense of language by translating the articles into rhyming verse and then from verse back into prose. So he's stretching himself, he's doing difficult, exceptionally difficult things. And then just to wrap up in one final paragraph, they say, before practice, opportunity and luck can combine to create expertise. The would-be experts needs to demythologize the achievement of top-level performance, because the notion that genius that is born, not made, is deeply ingrained. So get it out of your head that you can't succeed because you're not a genius, because you don't have this type of personality, because you don't have these attributes. Genius is made. Okay, that's what we need to talk about. And the final example they give is Mozart. Everyone talks about Mozart as this incredible virtuoso that 4 years old was composing all these symphonies. The thing they don't mention is how many hours he had accrued before he got to 10 years old. The fact that his father was also a famous music teacher and written one of the first books on violin instructions. And the final sentence, like other world-class performers, Mozart was not born an expert, he became one. This is available to you too. It's all about putting in those sets and reps. Find those sets and reps for expertise. And I hope this podcast and this article helped you as much as it helped me. I'll see you soon for another episode of the Freedom Project podcast.